Alright, sorry about that. Chris had to leave behind the camera and I had to get Danny. So from this point on, Danny's the one that is actually filming. So if things are much better or much worse, you have Danny Sardinas to kind of blame. But we were talking when we last left off of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is responsible for resolving the big matters, cases of much importance. For example, you've already read or you've already learned about a case where a gentleman was in Florida and he was accused of stealing things from a vending machine. You remember that? Mr. Gideon. Now, you may also recall that Mr. Gideon was tried. When he went to trial, he said to the trial court, I want an attorney, and the trial court in Florida said, you can't have one, you don't have the right to have one unless you can afford one, and Mr. Gideon was found guilty. Ultimately, Mr. Gideon sent a letter to the Supreme Court of the United States, and the Supreme Court decided, based on Mr. Gideon's letter, to listen to the case. So, oftentimes, the Supreme Court not only deals with cases where the appellate courts underneath it have resolved things differently, but also cases that it feels are very important. Okay? And there's a procedure that goes about. The judges sit together and they look and listen to all of the things that have been submitted, and as a court they decide which cases that they're going to accept. And there's a certain number of judges that think that this is a very important case. The judges will take the case. Otherwise, the case will be resolved based on what the appellate court did. So, in the Gideon case, it's a perfect example of what the Supreme Court of the United States has done. Now, going back to what we call diversity jurisdiction. Diversity jurisdiction, as you may recall, is a case where the amount that is being debated, disputed, argued about between the parties is more than $75,000. In that case, and in case where the parties, the plaintiff and the defendant are from different states, and this is very important, then the matter can be heard in federal court. You're probably saying, well, why 75,000 and why citizens of separate states? You see, the federal courts feel that a state court, the court of a state, might be unfair to a citizen of a different state. Why? Because state judges are elected. That's different than federal judges. Federal judges are nominated by the President of the United States and approved by the Senate of the United States. State judges can be elected by the people. As you know, elections sometimes can turn out to be popularity contests. And if judges have to be re-elected, oftentimes a judge might say, this citizen from the state of Florida might be important for my re-election, as opposed to that citizen from a different state. So taking that humanity into consideration, federal courts have said, in cases dealing with citizens of separate states, you can bring it here. However, you still have the requirement of $75,000. Why that amount? Well, because really it's a very significant amount of money. Because judges generally...